Yeah, y'all. I'm about to drop a little short videos because I just keep seeing stuff. And shout out to the people who bring this stuff to my attention. You know who you are. So first, I'm gonna comment about what you see on the screen here. Now, I'm going to make this clear. All right, this modern church building system is not biblical. It never was biblical. Um, Christ did not build his church using buildings that were regulated and controlled by the state or a government. He built his church, with his church being the body of believers, on Peter, who is a person. And if you recall 1 Corinthians 3:16, know ye not that you are the temple of God and the Spirit of God dwells within you. All right, the temple of God is the body of the believer, of which the Spirit of God dwells. Acts 7:48. The Most High dwelleth not in buildings made with hands. There are several scriptures that say this, okay? So I'm laying this foundation down. First of all, this wolf in sheep's clothing, this liar and deceiver known as Kenneth Copeland, tells his viewers that even if they lose their job, they must continue to tithe. Don't stop. Now, the tithe is not even for, well, first of all, the tithe was mainly not even money. First of all, it was food, and it was things that were part of the children of Israel, a society that used the Torah as their government. All right, a community that depended on the collective efforts of one another to stay within the Torah. All right, this had nothing to do with a society that we live in today, which is totally unbiblical from the smallest to the largest perspective of viewing it. We're not the Levites. We do not practice that law in this society. We have a separate government that everybody is on an individual, self-reliant situation in this modern society. So that does not even relate, okay? Jesus Christ of the Bible did not want people to have to distract from caring for their loved ones, providing food and personal shelter to fund a building controlled by the same government and state that will persecute them. Okay? Jesus would not have funded Rome. Most people have an issue of why Jesus never took up a home. He said, the birds have nests and the fox have holes, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. See, for him to be true on what his design and his purpose was, he could not compromise or conform with institutions in the government that is against him. He claimed to proclaim the gospel, to show the way, the truth, and be the life and light of the world to those who are lost in sin and death. This is not about, I can't believe how people don't realize that this, what you see on the screen, is not biblical. Creflo Dollar is not biblical. TD Jakes is not biblical. I'm sorry, but any church building where the government can come in and take it away is just not biblical. That's why Jesus Christ chose 12 disciples, and even with Judas, he had a purpose. All right, the purpose was because it was already predestined for Jesus Christ to give up his life. All right, that was predestined. And when Judas did what he did, he was replaced by Matthias. All right, this was, you only needed 12 people because the purpose was to proclaim the gospel. It wasn't to create a building fund, to create all these things, okay? It was about delivering souls. The world was what it is. Even Jesus said, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's and give what unto God, give unto God what is God's. All right? If you're going to put yourself under the burden of a government, then of course you're going to be required to give what the government requires. True faith is at having enough faith not to actually have to give in to your oppressor, your enemy, to survive, but surviving off of doing what your creator requires you to do. That is true faith. And it's hard, it's difficult, it's straight and narrow. All right. And the Bible says that broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many be that going thereat. So let's keep this real about what you're seeing. And a lot of people have a bad taste in about the Bible, but they don't realize all that they see in the world is not the Bible. Even if your pastor preaches the Bible, the fact that he uses a pagan platform to preach it in diminishes it. Jesus said this. He said, "You forsake the commandment of God for your traditions." You know, this was always foretold. The Bible always exposed all the false prophets and wicked traditions that will cause people to forsake the commandment of God. Remember, Jesus was the person who rebuked the religious Jewish Pharisees and scribes of his day. He went to the religious leaders and rebuked them, exposed them. He did not use kind words, people. If somebody who was walking in the truth came and exposed and rebuked a false pastor like Kenneth Copeland, he would be correct. But people will condemn the entire Bible when the Bible condemns these people. People don't realize we steal from a biblical worldview to actually create the justice that most of us want. And they expose the corruption that most of us see. You're using a biblical worldview because without the Bible, there's no standard. Who's to say that creating slavery is wrong outside of a biblical worldview? If you're not using the Bible, what are you using? Survival of the fittest? Well, unfortunately, that includes slavery. It includes murder. It includes everything that we hate as decent people. You have to steal a biblical worldview, which actually creates the justice and everything. And see what happens when the world rejects the Bible. That's why we have all this illogical behavior. That's why murderers get off. That's why pedophiles don't always get the justice that they deserve. Because this isn't a biblical worldview. And I'm going to also shout out to another YouTuber who pointed out the 5G issue. All right, 5G towers are popping up quickly. And everybody know it creates a very powerful radiation. I can literally feel it in my head when I pass one of them. I'm very sensitive to that electromagnetism. And I've always have. And when I drive past a 5G tower, I can feel it. And they're in a hurry to create this infrastructure, this system that we're all going to be a slave to when it's complete, where we won't be able to move without somebody tracking us, and all the technology and all the amenities we're going to use will be connected to this 5G network. And it could be while we're getting sick. See, people could be actually getting sick from that, if they're actually getting sick at all. It remains to be seen. But I know they are not talking about the illnesses that are coming from this 5G network that's being suppressed by the media. The media will not talk about this, which probably lets you know that it's actually worth talking about. Because mainstream media is only pumping out everything to distract you from what's really going on. You know, you know how many people had to die before glyphosate became an issue to bring up? The Roundup that they spray in all your yards and on all your foods. Enough people had to die that they couldn't ignore it anymore. They knew it. The government regulated it. It was in all your favorite cereals for a while. Just like the soy that's genetically modified in the high fructose corn syrup. That's in most of the stuff you get. That soy lecithin, which is in most of the products that many people who are not health conscious consume. Yes, it is genetically modified and sprayed with glyphosate, okay? It's destroying your body. Your government knew this. In fact, the FDA regulated it. So those scientists that the FDA uses, they regulated it. People didn't care. So just be aware, y'all. The 5G network is really probably what's causing illnesses and the deaths among the elderly and the immunocompromised people. But they need to create a distraction because they're probably trying to build this up quickly. because they need, you don't understand, life will not go back to the way it was. It just won't. And we need a very powerful system in place to take all these people and connect them into a network where the government can control everybody, where they can shut off your whole life by remote, where you won't get access to nothing unless you have a chip, whether it's in your real ID, your phone, or even in your hand, in your head. We don't know where this is going. We don't know to what extent, that this might lead to. I mean, forced vaccinations is not off the table, and even chipping people is something that, they've been gradually, the government has basically admitted that with all the policies they're implementing right now, they have full authority to do whatever they feel is necessary, which includes chipping you like cattle. They already did it to your pets. Dumb people have already volunteered in certain states and certain countries around the world. This is real, folks. This is not a theory. And again, I'm gonna do a video on the mark of the beast, so I'll talk about that later. Peace out.